If you've ever tried to work a narrow garden or a small patch of land with a tractor that's just too big, you know the struggle. Tight turns, heavy ruts, more horsepower than you'll ever need. But here's the good news, you don't have to fight your land. There are machines built for folks like you, small, tough, and dependable as an old friend. Today, we're looking at 5 used tractors that have stood the test of time, built for gardens, homesteads, and narrow land. Tractors that prove reliability never gets old, the kind that make you proud to turn the key. International Farmall 140. You know, there's something special about the Farmall 140. Came along in the late 1950s, back when farms were family operations and neighbors still helped each other bale hay on hot summer afternoons. Built in Louisville, Kentucky, this tractor was designed for the small farmer, the kind who grew sweet corn, tobacco, or tended vegetable gardens by hand. And even though it was compact, it carried the proud Farmall name, a name that meant something back then. Under that long red hood sits a simple 4-cylinder gasoline engine that purrs like a contented cat when it's tuned right. No fancy electronics. No digital readouts. Just metal, gears, and pure dependability. Rated at around 25 horsepower, it doesn't sound like much on paper, but anyone who's pulled a cultivator through a garden row with one knows it's got plenty of heart. What made the 140 so special was its offset design. The operator's seat sits slightly to the right, giving you a perfect view down your rows. That meant you could cultivate without guesswork, just line up your plants and go. It was built for precision before GPS ever existed. And for gardeners or folks with narrow plots, that narrow front end and tight turning radius still make it a dream to handle. These tractors were built like cast iron promises. Heavy enough to bite into the dirt, light enough not to tear up your soil. Most parts were over-engineered for longevity, simple linkages, thick steel fenders, and a mechanical feel you just don't get from modern compacts. If something broke, you didn't need a laptop. You just grabbed a wrench, a little grease, and maybe a cup of coffee to think it over. There's a kind of poetry in the way an old Farmall 140 starts up. That familiar put-put-put exhaust note drifting across a field in the morning, it's a sound that takes you back. For many, this tractor isn't just a tool, it's a piece of their family story. You'll still find them sitting in barns across America, covered in dust but ready to fire up after decades of faithful work. You can still find good used 140s today, often under $5 or $6 grand if you're lucky. And when you bring one home, you're not just buying a tractor, you're preserving a little piece of American agricultural history. So when I see a Farmall 140 out there, engine ticking steady, paint a little faded but proud, I can't help but smile. It reminds me of a time when machines were built to serve generations, not just product cycles. The 140 doesn't care about trends. It just works. Year after year. Season after season. And maybe that's why, for gardeners and small landowners across this country, the International Farmall 140 isn't just reliable, it's downright legendary. John Deere 750. If the Farmall 140 was the old reliable from another era, the John Deere 750 is the bridge between generations, a tractor that brought classic dependability into the modern age. The 750 first rolled off the line in the late 1970s, a time when John Deere teamed up with Yanmar of Japan to build compact diesel tractors that could do more with less. And let me tell you, they got it right. That partnership gave us a machine that felt solid as an oak and smooth as a Sunday drive down a country road. Under the hood, the 750 carries a 3-cylinder Yanmar diesel, somewhere around 20 horsepower at the PTO. Doesn't sound like much until you fire it up. That gentle diesel chatter is the sound of efficiency and endurance. It sips fuel instead of drinking it, runs cool, and if you treat it right, it'll outlast just about anything else on your property. This little green workhorse was made for folks who live close to the land. The kind of people who mow their own pasture, till their own gardens, and fix their own fences. With 4WD available, it could crawl through mud, pull a small plow, or haul firewood without breaking a sweat. And the gear-driven transmission, simple, sturdy, no nonsense, made sure you always felt in control. What sets the 750 apart, even now, is how comfortable it feels for its size. The seat's positioned just right, the levers are easy to reach, and the visibility is wide open. You don't feel boxed in. You feel connected to the machine, to the soil, to the job at hand. It's the kind of tractor that makes you want to keep working even after the sun starts to set. And of course, it wears that John Deere green and yellow, the colors that mean something out here. For decades, that paint has stood for quality, and when you see a 750 with a bit of fading and rust around the edges, it doesn't look tired, it looks seasoned. Like it's got a few stories to tell. I've known folks who've had their 750s for 30, even 40 years. They've mowed countless acres, cleared snow through brutal winters, and planted more gardens than they can count. One friend of mine still calls his Old Faithful. Says it's the only machine on his property that never complains. And I believe him. Now, you can still find these John Deere 750s on the used market. Most go for between $4,000 and $7,000, depending on condition and attachments. And here's the beauty of it, you can still get parts for them, no problem. John Deere and Yanmar built these things to be serviceable for life. When I see a 750 out in a field, paint dull under the afternoon sun, diesel humming steady, I see more than a tractor. I see a partner, a steady hand that's been there through storms, droughts, and every season in between. And that, my friends, is why the little 750 will always hold a big place in America's heartland. Ford 1710. Built in the early 1980s, the 1710 came from a time when Ford's compact tractor line was finding its stride. These weren't the big row crop machines your granddad used. They were tractors made for folks who had 5, maybe 10 acres of land, and a long list of things to do on it. And like most great Fords, it was tough, simple, and easy to love. Under that blue hood sits a 3-cylinder Shibora diesel engine, putting out around 26 horsepower, steady, smooth, and strong for its size. It's one of those engines that fires up on a cold morning without complaint, chugging along with that low, steady rhythm that feels like home. No computers, no sensors, just honest mechanical grit. The 1710 could be had in 2WD or 4WD, and that 4-wheel drive version turned it into a real little mule. It'll pull a box blade through clay soil, haul logs up a hillside, or clear a long gravel drive after a snowstorm. And it does it all with that sure-footed Ford feel, solid under you, steady in the hands. What made the 1710 special wasn't just its capability, though. It was how it fit into people's lives. A lot of owners used theirs for weekend chores, mowing pastures, tilling gardens, or maintaining a small homestead. Over the years, that little blue tractor became part of the landscape, a familiar shape sitting by the barn with a dented fender and a story behind every scratch. The controls were laid out simple and sensible. You could teach your son or daughter to drive it in an afternoon, and by sundown they'd be running it like they'd done it for years. There's a quiet kind of pride in that, passing down not just a tractor, but a piece of self-reliance. And let's not forget, parts are still easy to come by, thanks to Ford's long-standing connection with New Holland. That's one reason these tractors are still working today, for decades later. They were built to last, and the folks who own them know it. I remember a neighbor who swore his 1710 was the best investment he ever made. Said he bought it used in the late 90s, just to keep the weeds down. 25 years later, it's still there, paint faded to powder blue, tires worn smooth, but it fires up every spring and does its job without missing a beat. You can still find good examples out there, usually in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, depending on attachments. And when you climb up into that seat, grab that simple steel steering wheel, and feel that diesel hum through the frame, you know exactly why these little blue tractors earned their reputation. The Ford 1710 doesn't make a lot of noise about what it can do. It just delivers. Year after year. Field after field. For the folks who believe in hard work, good tools, and quiet dependability, this tractor fits right in. It's more than a piece of equipment. It's a partner. A reminder that reliability isn't flashy, it's earned, 1 acre at a time. Allis Chalmers 5020. Introduced in the late 1970s, the 5020 was built during a tough time for American farming. The big machines were getting bigger, and the small family farms were getting fewer. But there were still plenty of folks who needed something small, simple, and reliable, a tractor that could till a garden, mow a pasture, or haul a trailer of firewood without fuss. That's where the 5020 fit in. It may have worn Allis Chalmers orange, but under the hood was a heart from Japan, a Hinomoto-built diesel engine, smooth and efficient as they come. Rated around 22 horsepower at the PTO, it wasn't powerful by modern standards, but that little diesel would run all day on a gallon or two of fuel. It was the kind of thriftiness that made sense for the homesteader, the gardener, the weekend farmer. The 5020 had a quiet dignity about it. No fancy decals, no oversized tires or flashy curves. Just clean lines, a compact frame, and a steady engine note that said, "I've got this." It could fit where bigger tractors simply couldn't, between garden rows, through narrow gates, up into the wooded edges of a property. For folks working on small plots or hillside land, that compact design was pure gold. And while it might have been overlooked in its day, the 5020 earned a loyal following among people who actually used it. They loved its simplicity, no electronics to fail, no complex hydraulics, just a gear shift, a clutch, and a dependable little diesel. You could fix nearly anything on it with a socket set and a Saturday afternoon. There's something endearing about that kind of practicality. The 5020 was built when manufacturers still believed that small didn't have to mean weak. It was tough enough to handle a tiller, a brush hog, or a front blade, and light enough that you could trailer it behind a pickup. I've met folks who call their old 5020 Buddy or Little Orange. They'll tell you stories about how it cleared the driveway through 10 winters straight, or how it mowed every summer pasture since the day it came home. Machines like that become part of the family. You can still find 5020s out there on the used market, usually between $4,000 and $6,000, depending on the shape they're in. And more often than not, they start right up after sitting through a long winter, a little puff of smoke and that unmistakable diesel rhythm. It's as if they're saying, "Let's get back to work." So when you see one of these little tractors out there, paint faded, seat cracked, but still pushing dirt and pulling loads, take a moment to appreciate it. Because the Allis Chalmers 5020 is proof that even the underdogs, when built with honesty and care, can leave a legacy that lasts generations. JI Case 430. The 430 rolled out of Racine, Wisconsin, Back in the mid-1960s, a time when American manufacturing was at full stride and Case was known for building honest, hard steel. It was part of the 430 series, the line that carried the brand's reputation for strength and simplicity. You didn't need to be an engineer to run one, just someone with calloused hands, steady patience, and a good sense for the land. Under its bold orange it sat a 3.1-liter, four-cylinder engine, depending on what you ordered. The diesel version, especially, became legendary for its torque and durability. Around 35 horsepower, it had more than enough muscle for small farms and everyday chores. But it wasn't the power that made the 430 memorable, it was the feel. That deep, steady Case growl that let you know the job was getting done. This was a tractor made of real American steel, heavy, purposeful, and built like a handshake you could trust. The lines were clean and squared, the frame solid, the design straightforward. No unnecessary frills, no shortcuts. You could almost see the pride of the men and women who bolted them together on the factory floor. Owners loved how versatile it was. Hook up a loader, a plow, or a mower, the 430 took it all in stride. The 4-speed transmission with high and low range gave you 8 solid gears to work with, and the hydraulics were simple but strong. If something broke, you didn't call a service technician, you fixed it yourself, probably with parts from the local dealer down the road. And it wasn't just a farm tool, for many families, it was a part of life. I've seen 430s that cleared snow every winter for half a century, plowed gardens for 3 generations, and even helped raise barns or move stones back when neighbors worked together more often than not. There's something proud about that orange paint, that Case Power Red. It doesn't shine like it used to, but it still carries a certain dignity, the kind that comes only from years of honest work. When the sunlight hits a faded Case 430 sitting beside a weathered barn, you can almost hear the echoes of its past, the steady hum of the engine, the creak of the seat, the rhythm of a day well spent. You can still find these tractors today, often between $4,000 and $6,000, depending on condition. And when you buy one, you're not just buying a piece of equipment, you're bringing home a slice of American history. Something built by craftsmen, meant to serve people who understood the value of sweat and steel. So if you ever come across a Case 430 still rumbling along, don't just see it as an old tractor. See it for what it truly is, a monument to American grit, craftsmanship, and the unbreakable bond between people and the land they love. Five tractors. 5 stories. Each one different, but they all share the same soul, reliability, honesty, and heart. They remind us of a time when machines were built to serve, not just to sell. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they still mean so much to the people who run them today. So which one would you trust on your land, the classic Case, the John Deere, or the humble Allis Chalmers? Drop your pick down in the comments. And if this trip down memory lane brought back a few smiles, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories from the heart of America's farmland.